Hello and welcome dear viewers to the informative video on pre-formulation in pharmaceutical product development. So as we know, the pharmaceutical product development has different stages, and out of these different stages, pre-formulation plays a very important role. In this video we are going to see what is the importance and application of pre-formulation studies, how these are performed, what are the implications, and what are the types of studies. So let's start with the videos. See, the product development objective is to have a stable product. The product development objective is to develop a stable, robust, scalable and bioequivalent product. Out of these, to have the understanding about the stability, the pre-formulation activities are performed. These studies are required to understand the intrinsic nature of the drug substance which have influence onto the formulation. The pre-formulation studies are done onto the API and the excipients before the actual formulation development is done. That studies or those activities are called as pre-formulation studies. The aim of the pre-formulation studies is to select the components, that means the composition, manufacturing process, processing conditions and storage packaging or the storage packs. And depending on the product, the pre-formulation activities may vary and may have different objectives. If you want to select the suitable stabilizer, then pre-formulation studies will work. If you want to select the suitable solubilizer, that time also pre-formulation studies are performed. Many of the time it happens that you do the pre-formulation studies and you go to the next stage, but due to some observations or odd observations or study failures, once again you have to do some pre-formulation activities. So pre-formulation activities are not the stage specific. Whenever you get problem into the formulation, that time you come back to the pre-formulation studies, you perform the pre-formulation studies, and then that information is carried and that knowledge is applied for the formulation. So pre-formulation should not be restricted part, it should be very open part and should be performed throughout the product development. The objective of the pre-formulation studies is to have information and knowledge about the drug excipient compatibility study, whether the excipients are compatible or can be used into the formulation or not, selection of suitable and stable formulation like tablet, capsule, suspension or solution. For example, if you perform compatibility study of the drug substance with the water and you come to know that in presence of water or due to moisture the drug substance get degraded, so it will be very difficult to develop a suspension formulation with water, or it will be very difficult to use, or it will be restricted for the granulation. At that time you should avoid the use of water in granulation. Then selection of excipients and their levels. Selection of process of manufacturing. If the drug molecule shows degradation with solvents like water or organic solvents, that time dry granulation is performed instead of wet granulation. And if it is sensitive to water, then if granulation is performed, then the granulation is required to be performed with organic solvents. Then selection of suitable packaging system for the in-process material and the finished product. So in the pharmaceutical manufacturing, some in-process materials are produced like granules, dried granules, lubricated blend, core tablet, and the film coated tablets. Then for capsule formulation, there will be lubricated blend and the filled capsules. So for storing this in process material, depending on to the pre-formulation activities, the packaging system is given. Like store in triple laminated polybag, or store with silica if the material is hygroscopic. Store with oxygen scavenger if the material is sensitive to oxygen. So based on that, the storage of blend tablets before packaging and the final packaging is performed. The drug substance studies involve the study of physical properties. First is appearance or description. The appearance of the drug substance can affect the physical appearance of the formulation. If your API is yellow in color, the tablet color may be yellowish, or the tablet color will depend onto the API color. That's why description is important. Also, description is important for describing the in-process materials like blend. Particle shape and morphology. Particle shape and morphology affects the flow properties, and flow properties will have in turn impact onto the blend uniformity and the content uniformity. Particle size distribution. PSD is the prime important parameter, and it affects the flow properties, blend uniformity, content uniformity. It also have impact onto the processing parameters. If you take much fine powder, that time its flow will not be good, and processing is required to be done to improve the flow. Then particle size distribution will have great impact onto dissolution and the bioavailability. Also, particle size plays important role in stability of the formulation. Generally, it is regarded that, or generally it is concluded that the micronized API will have more reactivity with the excipients, while the coarser will have different. Also, particle size play a great role into the compression behavior if the formulation is tablet formulation. So particle size distribution is required to be studied in depth, and specifications are required to be given. Particle size specification is a very critical and very important step. If the particle size is not controlled, then it will have impact onto the drug product sequence. Particle size distribution is also a critical material attribute for the drug. Solid state form. Solid state form affects the solubility and stability. So in formulation, it should be understood that how many forms are available for the drug. Is the drug is if the drug is having any polymorphism, drug is crystalline or amorphous, that should be understood in depth. Melting point. Melting point affects the processing temperatures. If the drug is having low melting point, that time the in-process test like checking the LOD is required to be performed at lower temperatures. Also, if drying is there, that time the drying is required to be performed at lower temperatures. Also, the low melting point APIs undergo degradation during stability studies. That's why melting point is important, and melting point also depends on to the crystalline and amorphous behavior of the API. Different crystals have different melting points. That's why the melting point should be studied. Then come to the chemical properties. pK, log P, stability are the very important properties of the drug molecule. pK impacts the absorption distribution, metabolism and elimination. Log P affects absorption and accumulation in the tissues. Stability in solution state affects the dissolution media selection. If the API is not having stability in 0.1 normal HCl or 4.5 acetate buffer or 6.8 phosphate buffer, or if it is not having stability in water, that time based on that solution state stability, the dissolution media can be changed or can be selected. Stability and degradation with the use of solvents. So solvent used into the manufacturing process can be restricted, or the solvents which don't degrade the API should be selected. Stability of the polymorphic form. So this is very critical for the APIs which have different polymorphic forms. Some forms have good stability while the other forms will not have that much stability. Polymorphic forms have different solubilities and bioavailability. That's why study of polymorphic form is very critical. Stability under mechanical stress. Generally, the mechanical stress may or may not change the polymorph, but for some of the molecules it is seen that due to application of the mechanical stress, the polymorph gets changed, and in the formulations, the mechanical stress is given to the API or to the composition in the form of milling and compression. If you consider the tablet formulation, then mechanical stress is there during milling and compression. If you consider the drug substance, that time milling or micronization is the stage where the molecule is exposed to the mechanical stress. So mechanical stress may result into change in the polymorphic form or melting of the API, or sometimes it may be possible that the molecule get degraded because of the mechanical stress. So if the molecule get degraded due to mechanical stress, that time the procedures like dry mixing and capsule filling is to be performed, or the materials should be used which will resist or which will protect the API. Force degradation and stress studies. So force degradation and stress studies are performed to study the intrinsic stability of the API and to know the degradation pathways. The stability under mechanical stress involves the effect of milling grinding like API micronization, effect of compression force, melting or degradation due to compaction and compression. Also, in the solid oral formulation manufacturing process like roller compaction, the compaction force is applied. As the manufacturing process for tablet involves granules milling and compression, so stability under mechanical stress becomes important. Then comes to the drug excipient compatibility. Drug and excipients are mixed with different ratios, and these are exposed to various storage conditions in open and closed conditions, so that the impurity at initial and impurity profile at final time point of storage can be studied, and based on that the excipient which are compatible with the API can be selected for formulation. Also, some excipients have stabilizing effect and some excipients have degradation effects. So compatibility and incompatibility between the drug substance and excipients can be understood. Different ratios are taken and different stability conditions are used or different storage conditions are used to expose these samples. Degradation or stabilization of API due to excipients can be understood. The API can be stabilized by use of some excipients. Excipients like diluents, binders, disintegrants, lubricants, and the packaging materials can be evaluated. If you store the API in glass bottle and if you store the API in HDP bottle, that time you will come to know in which pack it is more stable. Also, sometimes the final formulation is stored in different packs and the packaging evaluation is done in stability studies. So, preformulation is a preliminary step in formulation development, and preformulation gives the idea about the intrinsic nature of API, and it gives the information to go ahead with which composition and which process. So whenever you are doing preformulation studies, do it with a clear objective, and preformulation study is not a restricted part during the early stage development only. After some failures in the formulation, after some problems arise into the formulation, that time also the pre-formulation studies are done. Regulatory point of view, there is no such guideline for performing the pre-formulation studies and excipient compatibility studies. The pre-formulation studies depend on to the product, and extensive pre-formulation studies are and should be performed so that the formulation can be made robust and stable. I hope I have covered the information regarding pre-formulation, and the video is mainly for formulation like oral solids. Other formulations like liquids, injectables, and the other formulations will have some different considerations. Thank you for watching the video. Kindly do like, share and subscribe to this channel. Thank you.